She sat at a reserved table by mistake, and the millionaire refused to let her walk away. Before we explore all the details of this incredible story, tell us where you're following us from and the time. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing, and let's embark on this journey together. She should have stayed home that night, but sometimes destiny has other plans. The golden glow of Meridian's chandeliers cast warm shadows across the mahogany floors as Selina Hart stepped through the heavy glass doors. Her fingers smoothed the wrinkles from her simple blue linen dress, the only one she owned that didn't scream, overworked and underpaid. Tonight was different. Tonight was hers. 2 years, 24 months of double shifts, skipped meals, and sleepless nights, hunched over accounting textbooks. The final payment had cleared that morning. She was officially debt-free from her certification course, and for the first time in years, Selina felt like celebrating. The hostess, a statuesque blonde with practiced perfection, barely glanced up from her reservation book. Name? Hart. Selina Hart, she said, her voice carrying the quiet confidence of someone who'd fought for every small victory. The woman's manicured finger traced down the list, pausing briefly before nodding. Right this way, Miss Hart. Selina followed, her modest heels clicking against the polished marble. She'd chosen Meridian because it represented everything she was working toward: elegance, success, the kind of place where important people made important decisions. Tonight, she wanted to feel important too. The hostess led her through the main dining room, past couples sharing intimate conversations over wine that probably cost more than Selina's weekly grocery budget. They continued walking deeper into the restaurant until they reached a secluded alcove she hadn't even noticed from the entrance. "Your table, Miss Hart," the hostess said with a smile that seemed almost knowing. Selina slid into the plush burgundy booth, her eyes widening as she took in the surroundings. Crystal stemware caught the candlelight like tiny stars. The tablecloth was so pristine it looked untouched by human hands. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, downtown Dallas sparkled below like a sea of promises. This wasn't what she'd expected. The reservation she'd made online was for the main dining room, a simple table for one, nothing fancy. But maybe they'd upgraded her. Maybe the universe was finally throwing her a bone after years of throwing her curveballs. The sommelier appeared with a bottle of wine she definitely hadn't ordered. "Compliments of the house," he said, pouring the deep red liquid with ceremonial precision. Selina hesitated, then accepted the glass. The wine was smooth, complex, probably worth more than she made in a day at Hartwell and Associates, the small consulting firm where she'd been grinding away as an administrative assistant for 3 years. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through the congratulatory texts from her sister Mika. "I'm so proud of you, sis. You did it." The message made her chest tighten with emotion. Everything she'd sacrificed, every social event she'd missed, every date she'd declined because she was too tired or too broke, it had all led to this moment. A shadow fell across her table. "Excuse me." The voice was deep, controlled, with the kind of authority that made people stop what they were doing and listen. Selina looked up from her phone, and her breath caught in her throat. The man standing beside her table was tall, at least 6'2", with dark hair that looked professionally styled despite the late hour. His charcoal suit was tailored to perfection, and his eyes, God, his eyes were the color of storm clouds, intense and unreadable. There was something magnetic about him, something that made the air in the room feel suddenly thinner. "I believe you're sitting at my table," he said, his tone even but not unkind. Heat flooded Selina's cheeks as reality crashed down around her. She'd been so lost in her celebration, so caught up in the fantasy of belonging in a place like this, that she hadn't questioned the upgrade, the complimentary wine, the treatment fit for someone far more important than an administrative assistant from Oak Cliff. "Oh my God," she whispered, fumbling for her purse. "I'm so sorry. There must have been some mistake. I'll leave right now." She started to stand, but his hand, strong, warm, touched her wrist gently. "Wait." The single word stopped her mid-motion. She looked up at him, expecting anger, annoyance, the kind of entitled fury she'd seen from wealthy clients at her office when things didn't go exactly as planned. Instead, she found something else entirely: curiosity. Leon Vaughn had arrived at Meridian 5 minutes late, something that never happened. His day had been consumed by a hostile takeover attempt that had ultimately failed, leaving him mentally drained and oddly restless. He'd come here seeking the familiar comfort of solitude, excellent food, and the predictable deference of staff who knew better than to disturb him. What he hadn't expected was to find a woman sitting at his private table, a beautiful woman with natural hair styled in elegant twists, skin like polished bronze, and eyes that held both vulnerability and strength. She wasn't wearing the kind of designer dress or jewelry that marked most women in his social circle. Her makeup was subtle, her style understated but striking. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was just real. "What's your name?" he asked, still standing beside the table. "Selina," she said quietly, her fingers tightening around her purse strap. "Selina Hart, and I really should go." "Sit down, Selina Hart." It wasn't a command exactly, but it wasn't a request either. Something in his voice made her pause, made her look at him more carefully. He wasn't what she'd expected an angry customer to be. There was something almost gentle about the way he was looking at her. "Since fate saw fit to put you in my chair tonight," he continued, sliding into the seat across from her, "maybe it has something to tell me." And as Selina slowly lowered herself back into the booth, her heart hammering against her ribs, she had no idea she was about to have dinner with one of the most powerful men in Texas, or that this single moment of mistaken identity would change both their lives forever. What would you do if you accidentally sat at a billionaire's table? Would you run or stay to see what destiny had in store? The silence between them stretched like a bridge neither was sure they should cross. Selina's fingers traced the rim of her wine glass, her mind racing. Every instinct screamed at her to apologize again, to gather her dignity and leave. But something about the way this stranger looked at her, not through her, not past her, but directly at her, made her stay frozen in place. Leon studied her face in the candlelight. In his world, people wore masks. They smiled when they wanted something, laughed when it served their interests, spoke words crafted by publicists and lawyers. But this woman, her emotions played across her features like music he'd forgotten how to hear. "You're nervous," he observed, his voice softer now. "Terrified, actually," Selina admitted with a small laugh that didn't quite hide her trembling. "I've never crashed a billionaire's dinner before." The corner of his mouth twitched. "How do you know I'm a billionaire? The private table? The wine that costs more than my rent? The way the staff treats you like royalty?" She gestured around them. "Plus you have that look." "What look?" "Like you own everything you see." Her honesty surprised them both. "Sorry, I didn't mean—" "Don't apologize." Leon leaned forward slightly. "I've been told I'm intimidating. You're the first person to explain why." The sommelier appeared again, this time with menus bound in leather that probably cost more than Selina's dress. Leon waved him away with a subtle gesture that spoke of years of practiced authority. "Tell me about yourself, Selina Hart." "There's not much to tell." She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous habit she'd had since childhood. "I work at a consulting firm downtown, administrative stuff mostly. I just finished paying off my accounting certification program." "Is that what you were celebrating tonight?" The question caught her off guard. Most people would have moved on, made small talk about the weather or the restaurant, but he was listening, really listening, in a way that made her chest feel tight. "Yes," she said quietly. 2 years of night classes, weekend study groups, living on ramen noodles and prayer. But I did it. I finally did it." Something shifted in Leon's expression. "Congratulations." The word carried weight, respect, not the patronizing tone she was used to from successful people who saw her struggles as quaint. "What about you?" she asked, then immediately wanted to take it back. "I mean, you don't have to answer that. I'm sure you have important things to—" "I build things," he said simply. "Roads, bridges, buildings, infrastructure that lasts longer than the people who use it." "That sounds meaningful." Leon paused with his wine glass halfway to his lips. Meaningful. When was the last time someone had described his work that way? His board called it profitable. The media called it empire building. His competitors called it ruthless. "My father thought so," he said, surprising himself with the admission. "He was a construction foreman in Detroit, worked himself to death building other people's dreams." Selina's expression softened. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. He taught me that if you're going to build something, build it to last. Make it matter. And have you made it matter?" The question hung between them like a challenge. Leon had given countless interviews, delivered keynote speeches to packed auditoriums, sat across from Fortune 500 CEOs who hung on his every word. But no one had ever asked him that. "I thought so," he said finally. "Until tonight." "What changed tonight?" "I met someone who fights for 2 years to pay for her own education instead of asking Daddy for a check." His eyes met hers. Someone who celebrates alone because she's too proud to let anyone else take credit for her victories. Heat climbed Selina's neck. You don't know me. I know you didn't recognize me when you looked up from your phone. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Should I have recognized you? Leon's laugh was soft, almost sad. Leon Vaughn, Vaughn Industries. We're probably building the highway you take to work. Selina's eyes widened. She had heard that name, seen it on construction signs around Dallas, in business headlines she skimmed during her lunch breaks. Leon Vaughn wasn't just wealthy, he was powerful in ways that shaped the city around them. Oh God, she whispered, I really don't belong here. Stop. His voice was firm but not harsh. You belong wherever you choose to be. Easy for you to say, you probably own half of Dallas. Money doesn't make you belong, Selina. I learned that the hard way. Leon's fingers drummed against the table, the first sign of nervousness she'd seen from him. I've eaten at tables like this my entire adult life, but I've never had a conversation that felt real. The waiter approached with practiced stealth, but Leon dismissed him with a slight shake of his head. The man disappeared as silently as he'd come. Why are you being so kind to me? Selina asked. Most people in your position would have had security escort me out, because you're the first person in years who's looked at me and seen a man instead of a bank account. The admission settled between them like a secret. Selina found herself studying his face, the sharp line of his jaw, the way his expensive shirt couldn't quite hide the breadth of his shoulders, the vulnerability that flickered behind his controlled exterior. That must be lonely, she said softly. Leon's breath caught. When was the last time someone had shown him compassion instead of asking for favors? When had anyone cared about his loneliness instead of his portfolio? It is, he admitted. They sat in comfortable silence, two strangers sharing truths they rarely spoke aloud. Outside the windows, Dallas continued its relentless pulse, but inside their private alcove, time seemed suspended. Selina, Leon said finally, his voice carrying a note she couldn't quite identify. Would you have dinner with me tomorrow night here, without the mistaken identity this time? Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was dangerous territory, the kind of fairy tale thinking that led sensible women to make foolish choices. But the way he was looking at her, the raw honesty in his voice, made it impossible to think sensibly. Why? She whispered. Because I haven't felt this alive in years. And as Selina stared into Leon Vaughn's storm-grey eyes, she realized she was about to say yes to something that would either be the best decision of her life or destroy everything she'd worked so hard to build. She almost didn't come, and that would have been the biggest mistake of her life. Selina stood outside Meridian for the third time in 10 minutes, her reflection wavering in the restaurant's polished glass doors. The same blue linen dress hung in her closet, the only thing remotely appropriate for a place like this. But tonight felt different. Tonight wasn't an accident. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister Mika. Girl, if you don't go in there and live your life, I'm driving over to drag you inside myself. Taking a shaky breath, Selina pushed through the entrance. The hostess, the same blonde from last night, smiled with genuine warmth this time. Miss Hart, right this way, Mr. Vaughn is waiting. The walk to the private alcove felt longer tonight, each step weighted with possibility and terror. What did she really know about Leon Vaughn beyond what Google had told her during her lunch break? Billionaire businessman, 47 buildings across Texas, never married, rarely photographed with the same woman twice. That last detail had made her stomach clench, with something uncomfortably close to jealousy. He was already seated when she arrived, but stood immediately, a gesture of old-fashioned courtesy that surprised her. Tonight he wore a navy blazer over dark jeans, the casual elegance making him somehow more approachable, yet no less magnetic. You came, he said, and there was genuine relief in his voice. I almost didn't, Selina admitted, accepting his help with her chair. This morning I convinced myself last night was some kind of fever dream. And now? She looked around the familiar alcove, at the same crystal glasses catching candlelight, at the way the staff moved with practiced invisibility. Now I'm wondering what I've gotten myself into. Leon's laugh was low, rich. That makes two of us. The sommelier appeared with the same wine from the previous evening, but Leon held up a hand. Actually, bring us something different tonight. Something unexpected. As the man departed, Selina raised an eyebrow. You don't like routine? I'm discovering I like surprises more than I thought. His eyes met hers. How was your day? Such a simple question, the kind strangers asked in elevators or checkout lines, but the way he asked it, with genuine interest, as if her answer mattered, made her pause. Complicated, she said finally. I spent most of it second-guessing last night. And you? I cancelled 3 meetings and rearranged my entire schedule so I could be here at 7:30. Why? Because 24 hours felt like 24 years. The admission hung between them, raw and honest. Selina felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crack. The sommelier returned with a bottle of something golden and effervescent. A champagne from a small vineyard in Sonoma, he explained. The owner started with nothing but determination and a dream. Leon's eyes never left Selina's face. Perfect. As they toasted, to what neither was quite sure, Selina found herself relaxing for the first time all day. The wine was crisp, celebratory, nothing like the heavy red she associated with serious business dinners. "Tell me about your sister," Leon said as their appetizers arrived. "You mentioned her last night." "Mika." Selina's face softened instantly. "She's 22, finishing her nursing degree at UT Arlington. Brilliant, stubborn, everything I wish I'd been at her age." "You raised her?" "After our mom died, yes. I was 21, barely keeping my own life together, and suddenly I'm responsible for a teenager who was smarter than me and knew it." Leon watched the play of emotions across her features. Love, pride, a shadow of old pain. That couldn't have been easy. It wasn't, but it was the first time I really understood what it meant to fight for someone else. Selina paused, realizing how much she'd revealed. "What about you? Any siblings?" "Only child. Boarding school from age 8. Summers at various relatives who didn't particularly want me there." Leon's tone was matter-of-fact, but Selina caught the underlying hurt. "I learned early that the only person you can count on is yourself. That sounds lonely." It was practical. "Leon," she said his name softly, and something in her voice made him look up from his plate. Practical and lonely aren't mutually exclusive. The observation hit him like a physical blow. How many years had he convinced himself that isolation was strength, that needing no one made him powerful? Yet here was this woman, this beautiful, complicated woman, seeing through his carefully constructed armor as if it were made of glass. "Your turn to tell me about your day," Selina said, seeming to sense his need to change the subject. "I spent 4 hours in meetings discussing quarterly projections and market expansion," Leon said. "Then I spent 3 hours thinking about a woman I met by accident who paid for her own education and celebrates her victories alone." Heat climbed Selina's neck. "You don't even know me. I know you work 2 jobs to support yourself and your sister. I know you could have asked me for money last night. God knows enough people do. But instead you tried to leave. I know you're sitting here in a dress you've probably worn to every important event for the past 2 years, and you look more beautiful than women who spend thousands on their wardrobes. Leon, I know you bite your lip when you're nervous," he continued, his voice dropping to something almost intimate, "and that you have a small scar on your left hand that you keep trying to hide. I know you order your coffee black because you can't afford the fancy additions, and I know you're terrified of wanting something you think you can't have." Selina stared at him, her heart hammering. "How do you know all that?" "Because I pay attention to what matters." The words settled between them like a promise. Selina had spent years being invisible, the efficient assistant, the responsible sister, the woman who kept her head down and her dreams small. But Leon saw her, really saw her. "This is dangerous," she whispered. "Why?" "Because I could fall for you." The admission escaped before she could stop it, honest and terrifying. "And I can't afford to fall for someone whose world is so different from mine." Leon reached across the table, his fingers covering hers. "What if I told you I'm already falling?" The touch sent electricity through her entire body. This was the moment, the choice that would define everything that came after. She could pull her hand away, thank him for dinner, and go back to her safe, predictable life. Or she could take the leap and see where this impossible connection might lead. "Then I'd say we're both in trouble," she said softly. Leon's smile was slow, devastating, the best kind of trouble. And as their fingers intertwined on the white tablecloth, Selina realized she'd just crossed a line she could never uncross. 3 weeks of secret dinners, and she still felt like she was living someone else's life. Selina adjusted her earpiece as she transferred another call at Hartwell and Associates, her mind drifting to the text that had arrived an hour earlier. "Meet me at 7. Same place, I have something to show you. L." The butterflies in her stomach had been doing somersaults ever since. "Selina, you're glowing again," teased Janet, the office manager, as she dropped a stack of invoices on her desk. "Either you found the fountain of youth, or there's a man involved." "I don't know what you're talking about," Selina replied, but her smile betrayed her. 3 weeks of dinners at Meridian. 3 weeks of conversations that stretched until the restaurant staff began their closing routines. 3 weeks of Leon Vaughn slowly peeling back layers of himself she suspected few people ever saw. He'd told her about his panic attacks, the ones that hit during board meetings when the weight of 8,000 employees' livelihoods pressed down on his chest. About the nights he drove aimlessly through Dallas because his penthouse felt more like a prison than a home. About how he'd forgotten what it felt like to laugh until she'd made some ridiculous observation about the pretentious art in the restaurant's lobby. In return, she'd shared her own secrets. The way she sometimes ate cereal for dinner because groceries were expensive and Mika's textbooks weren't. How she practiced important conversations in her bathroom mirror because confidence didn't come naturally. The dreams she'd given up and the ones she was still brave enough to chase. "Ms. Hart," the voice belonged to Mr. Hartwell himself, the silver-haired man who rarely emerged from his corner office. "Could I see you for a moment?" Selina's stomach dropped. In 3 years, she'd spoken to the company's founder exactly twice, both times during her annual reviews. She followed him into his office, noting the awards lining the walls, the family photos on his desk. "Please, sit." He gestured to the leather chair across from his desk. "I'll get straight to the point. I've been watching your work and I'm impressed. Your organizational skills, your attention to detail, your client interactions, all exemplary. Thank you, sir. I'm promoting you to junior financial analyst, 15% salary increase, your own office, direct involvement in client accounts." He slid a folder across the desk. "Congratulations, Selina. You've earned this." The words hit her like a physical force. Junior financial analyst. The kind of position she'd dreamed about during those late-night study sessions, the recognition she'd worked 3 years to achieve. Thank you, Mr. Hartwell. I don't know what to say. Say you'll start Monday." His smile was genuine. "We need people like you, people who understand that success isn't handed to you, it's earned." Selina floated through the rest of her workday, the promotion letter clutched in her hands like a talisman. She couldn't wait to tell Leon, to share this moment with someone who understood how much it meant. Leon was waiting when she arrived at Meridian, but something was different about his posture, tension in his shoulders, a tightness around his eyes that she'd learned to recognize. "Bad day?" she asked, sliding into her chair. "Complicated day." He poured wine from a bottle that was already half empty. "What about you? You look radiant." "I got promoted." The words burst out of her, joy overtaking her usual restraint. "Junior financial analyst, my own office, Leon. Can you believe it?" His face transformed, the stress melting away as a genuine smile spread across his features. "Selina, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you. I keep expecting to wake up and find out it's all a dream. The promotion, these dinners with you." She gestured between them. "None of this feels real." "It's real," Leon said softly, "and you deserve all of it." They toasted her success with champagne that tasted like liquid starlight, but as the evening progressed, Selina noticed Leon's mood shifting. He seemed distracted, checking his phone more frequently than usual. "What's wrong?" she finally asked. Leon was quiet for a long moment, swirling the wine in his glass. "I have to fly to Austin tomorrow. Big project meeting with the State Transportation Department. I'll be gone for 3 days. "Oh." The disappointment was sharper than she'd expected. 3 weeks of seeing him almost daily had created a rhythm she'd grown to depend on. "Come with me." The words hung in the air between them like a challenge. Selina's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "What?" "Come to Austin with me. I have a suite at the Four Seasons. We could spend time together. Real time, not just stolen hours over dinner." Heat flooded Selina's face. The implication was clear, and it terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. "Leon, I can't just disappear for a weekend. I have responsibilities, work. You just got promoted. Take a personal day, live a little. Easy for you to say. Your company won't fire you if you disappear." "Selina." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "I'm not asking you to disappear. I'm asking you to trust me. To trust this." He gestured between them. "Whatever this is." She stared at their joined hands, at the contrast between his expensive watch and her clearance rack bracelet. "This is moving too fast." "Says who? Some rule book about how relationships are supposed to work?" Leon's thumb traced circles on her palm. "I've followed rules my entire life, Selina. I've been careful, strategic, practical. And you know what I have to show for it? Money and loneliness. You barely know me. I know you take your coffee black not because you don't like cream, but because you're saving every dollar for your future. I know you haven't bought yourself anything new in months because you're putting Mika through school. I know you cry during sad commercials and you sing off-key in the shower. How do you know I sing in the shower?" Leon's smile was soft, almost shy. "You told me last Tuesday, after your second glass of wine when you were talking about your morning routine." The fact that he remembered such a tiny detail made her chest tight with emotion. When was the last time someone had paid attention to her that way? "This is scary for me," she admitted. "I've never had someone want to take care of me. I've always been the one doing the taking care of." "Then let me." His voice was rough with sincerity. "Just for one weekend, let me show you what it feels like to be someone's priority." Selena's phone buzzed with a text from Mika. "Stop overthinking and say yes to whatever he's asking. Life's too short for maybe." She looked up to find Leon watching her, his expression open and vulnerable in a way that made her forget about practical concerns and sensible choices. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay? I'll come to Austin with you." Leon's smile was brilliant, transformative. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles that sent electricity racing through her entire body. "You won't regret this," he promised. But as Selena looked into his storm-grey eyes, she wondered if she was about to discover just how deep the rabbit hole of Leon Vaughan's world really went, and whether she was strong enough to survive the fall. She thought she knew what wealth looked like, until she stepped into his world. The private jet was smaller than Selena had imagined, all cream leather and polished wood that smelled like expensive cologne and possibilities. She'd flown exactly twice in her life, both times in cramped economy seats with crying babies and overpriced snacks. This felt like entering a different universe entirely. "Nervous?" Leon asked, settling into the seat across from her as the engines hummed to life. "Terrified," she admitted, gripping the armrests as they taxied down the runway. "I keep waiting for someone to realize I don't belong here and escort me back to coach." "You belong wherever you choose to be." It was the same thing he'd told her that first night, but now it carried the weight of weeks of shared conversations, of barriers slowly crumbling between them. As Dallas fell away beneath them, Selena watched the city shrink to a pattern of lights and highways. Somewhere down there was her small apartment, with its second-hand furniture and stack of bills on the kitchen counter. Somewhere down there was her old life, safe, predictable, entirely her own. "Regrets?" Leon asked, following her gaze. "Just processing." She turned to face him. 3 weeks ago, the most exciting thing in my life was finding a good parking spot downtown. Now I'm flying to Austin with a man who probably owns parking lots." Leon's laugh was rich, genuine. "Actually, I do own several parking structures. Terrible investment, but excellent tax write-offs." "Of course you do." Selena shook her head, but she was smiling. "What else don't I know about your empire? It's not an empire. It's a business." His tone shifted slightly, becoming more serious. "Built by people who trust me to make decisions that keep their families fed, their kids in college, their mortgages paid. That's a lot of responsibility. It's everything." Leon's fingers drummed against his armrest, that nervous tell she'd learned to recognize. "My father carried a lunch pail to work every day for 30 years. Never missed a day, never complained, never asked for anything he hadn't earned. He died believing his son would build something that mattered." Selena studied his profile as he stared out the window. "And did you?" "I thought so, until I realized I'd built a monument to success that felt more like a tomb." The raw honesty in his voice made her chest tight. "Leon, sorry." He turned back to her with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Not exactly romantic weekend conversation." "I didn't come here for romance," she said softly. "I came here to understand you." Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, gratitude, something deeper she couldn't name. "Most women want the fairy tale." "I'm not most women." "No," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "You're not." The 4 seasons in Austin was everything Selena had expected, and nothing she was prepared for. The suite was larger than her entire apartment, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and a marble bathroom that looked like something from a magazine. "This is insane," she breathed, running her fingers along the silk curtains. "It's Friday night in Austin," Leon said, loosening his tie. "I thought we could walk around downtown, get some barbecue, maybe listen to some music on 6th Street. Selena turned to stare at him. "You want to eat barbecue on the street? You sound surprised." "I just assumed, I don't know, 5-star restaurants, private clubs, that sort of thing." Leon's expression grew thoughtful. "Is that what you want?" "I want to see who you are when you're not trying to impress anyone." "Then barbecue it is." An hour later, they were walking down Congress Avenue, Leon in jeans and a simple button-down, Selena in a sundress she'd bought on sale at Target. He looked different outside the controlled environment of Meridian, younger, more relaxed, almost normal. Almost. The restaurant Leon chose was a hole-in-the-wall place with picnic tables and a line out the door. As they waited, Selina noticed the subtle deference of the staff, the way other diners glanced in their direction. Even in casual clothes, Leon carried an aura of power that was impossible to miss. "You've been here before," she observed. "My first big contract was in Austin. 22 years old, convinced I was going to change the world." Leon smiled at the memory. "I ate here every night for 3 weeks because it was the only place I could afford. And now I could buy the building. But the brisket still tastes the same." They found a table on the outdoor patio, string lights casting warm shadows across their faces. The food was incredible, smoky, messy, requiring more napkins than conversation. For the first time since she'd known him, Leon seemed completely at ease. "Tell me about your first job," Selina said, watching him struggle with a particularly loaded sandwich. "Construction crew in Garland. 16 years old, lied about my age, spent the summer hauling rebar and learning words I couldn't repeat in polite company." Leon wiped sauce from his chin. "Best education of my life. Better than Harvard. You've been researching me." Heat climbed Selina's neck. "Maybe a little. Harvard taught me how to think. That construction crew taught me how to work." Leon leaned back in his chair. "There's a difference." As they walked through downtown Austin afterward, the city pulsing with music and laughter around them, Selina found herself seeing Leon through new eyes. He stopped to drop money in a street musician's guitar case, knew the bouncer at a blues club by name, bought flowers from a vendor for no reason other than to see Selina smile. "You're different here," she said, as they paused on a bridge overlooking the Colorado River. "Different how?" "Lighter. Like you're not carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders." Leon was quiet for a moment, his hands resting on the bridge railing. "I haven't felt light in a long time." "What changed?" "You." He turned to face her, his eyes serious in the glow of the city lights. "You make me remember who I used to be before I became what everyone needed me to be." The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Selina felt the familiar flutter of panic, the voice that warned her this was too much, too fast, too dangerous for a woman who couldn't afford to have her heart broken. But standing there with the river flowing beneath them and Leon looking at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life, she decided to be brave. "Show me," she said softly. "Show you what?" "Who you used to be." Leon's smile was slow, devastating. He took her hand, his fingers warm and strong around hers. "I used to believe in possibilities," he said, "in taking chances on things that scared me, in the kind of love that changes everything. And now? Now I'm standing on a bridge in Austin with a woman who makes me want to believe again." As Leon leaned down to kiss her, their first real kiss, soft and tender and full of promise, Selina realized she was about to discover that some fairy tales don't start with once upon a time. Sometimes they start with a mistake that turns out to be destiny. Some secrets are too big to hide and too dangerous to tell. Selina woke up in sheets that cost more than her monthly rent, morning light filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows that framed Austin like a postcard. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then Leon's arm tightened around her waist, and reality came flooding back. They'd spent the night talking, just talking, about childhood dreams and adult disappointments, about the weight of expectations and the courage required to disappoint people. Leon had held her close, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her shoulder, as she told him about the night her mother died, about being 21 and suddenly responsible for keeping a family together. "Good morning." His voice was rough with sleep, intimate in a way that made her stomach flutter. "Morning." She turned to face him, still amazed that this was real. Waking up next to Leon Vaughn, seeing him rumpled and unguarded in the golden morning light. "Coffee?" he asked, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. "Please." "Black." "I know." His smile was tender. "I've been paying attention." As Leon padded to the suite's kitchen in pajama pants and nothing else, Selina allowed herself a moment to admire the breadth of his shoulders, the easy confidence in his movements. Even half-dressed in a hotel room, he commanded space like he owned it. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Mika. "Don't you dare come home without details and pictures. I need to live vicariously through someone." Selina smiled, typing back, "It's complicated. The best things always are. Love you, sis." Love. The word made Selina's chest tight with equal parts longing and terror. Was that what this was becoming? Love? Or was she just caught up in the fantasy of being wanted by someone like Leon? "Your sister?" Leon asked, returning with 2 cups of coffee and settling back into bed beside her. "She wants details about my mysterious weekend getaway." And what are you going to tell her? That I'm way out of my depth with a man who makes me forget all the rules I've made for myself. Leon's expression grew serious. What rules? Don't get involved with your boss. Don't date men you can't afford to lose. Don't fall for fairy tales that aren't meant for girls like me. Girls like you, Selina gestured around the opulent suite. Girls who grew up in Oak Cliff apartments with leaky faucets and second-hand everything. Girls who know the price of groceries because they have to choose between milk and bread some weeks. Leon set his coffee aside, turning to face her fully. Selina, I'm not ashamed of where I come from, she said quickly. But I'm not naive either. This, she gestured between them, this doesn't happen to women like me, not in real life. This is real life. This is our life, if we want it to be. The words were beautiful, seductive. But Selina had learned early that wanting something didn't make it possible. Is it? Because in 3 hours we fly back to Dallas, and then what? You go back to your penthouse and your board meetings, and I go back to my desk job and my student loans? Leon was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing the rim of his coffee cup. What if it doesn't have to be that way? What do you mean? Move in with me. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Selina's heart stopped, then started again at double speed. Leon, I'm serious. My place has plenty of room. You could quit that job, focus on building your career. No more worrying about rent or groceries or choosing between necessities. You want to take care of me. I want to love you without obstacles. The admission was raw, honest, everything she'd dreamed of hearing. But instead of joy, Selina felt a cold knot of fear in her stomach. What about Mika? My sister is still in school, still needs support. I'll take care of her too. Tuition, living expenses, whatever she needs. And what do I become in this arrangement? Your kept woman? Your grateful recipient of charity? Leon's face changed, hurt, flashing across his features. That's not what I meant, isn't it? Selina sat up, pulling the sheet around herself. You solve all my problems with money and I become, what? Your convenient girlfriend who doesn't have to worry about the real world anymore? I thought you'd be happy. I thought this would make things easier for us. Easier for you, maybe. But what happens when you get bored? When the novelty of your charity case wears off? The words tumbled out, fueled by every insecurity she'd ever carried about being worthy of love. I go back to having nothing, but now I've lost my independence too. Leon stood abruptly, running his hands through his hair. That's not how I see you. That's not how I see this. Then how do you see it? I see a woman I'm falling in love with, who's too proud to let me help her. And I see a man who thinks love means solving problems with his checkbook. The words hit Leon like a physical blow. He turned to face her, his expression raw with hurt and anger. Is that really what you think of me? That I'm just some rich guy trying to buy affection? Selina's throat tightened with unshed tears. I think you're a good man who's used to fixing things with money, but I can't be fixed, Leon. I'm not broken. I never said you were broken. You want to pay my rent, my sister's tuition, take away every struggle that made me who I am? What does that leave me with? It leaves you with me, he said quietly. And what happens when that's not enough anymore? Leon stared at her for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. You don't trust me. I don't trust this. I don't trust that someone like you could really want someone like me for the long term. Someone like me. Someone who has everything. Someone who could have anyone. Leon's laugh was bitter. You think having money means having everything? You think being able to buy anything I want means I'm not desperate for something I can't purchase? What? Love, Selina. Real love. The kind that sees past the bank account and the business suits and wants the man underneath. His voice cracked slightly. I thought I'd found that with you. The pain in his voice made Selina's chest ache. She wanted to reach for him, to take back the harsh words, to accept his offer and dive headfirst into the fairy tale he was offering. But the scared girl who'd learned early that people left, that security was something you built for yourself, held her back. I need time, she whispered. Time for what? To figure out if what I feel for you is real, or just gratitude for being seen by someone like you. Leon's face went very still. And how exactly do you plan to figure that out? By going back to my life, my real life, and seeing if what we have can survive there. As Leon turned away from her, his shoulders rigid with hurt and frustration, Selina realized she might have just made the biggest mistake of her life. But she also knew that if she couldn't be sure of her own feelings, she couldn't trust his either. Some bridges, once burned, could never be rebuilt. And as the silence stretched between them, Selina wondered if she'd just set fire to the most beautiful thing that had ever happened to her. 2 weeks of silence can feel like a lifetime, or like the death of everything that mattered. Selina stared at her new office, her actual office with her name on a placard and a window that overlooked the Dallas skyline, and felt nothing. The promotion she'd worked 3 years to achieve seemed hollow now, tainted by the memory of sharing the news with someone who was no longer part of her life. Her phone sat face down on her desk, its silence as loud as a scream. 14 days since Austin. 14 days since she'd walked away from Leon Vaughn and the life he'd offered. 14 days of wondering if she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. Knock, knock. Mika peeked around the office door, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing the concerned expression that had become familiar over the past 2 weeks. Thought you might need caffeine and sister therapy. I'm fine, Selina lied, accepting the coffee gratefully. Sure you are, that's why you've been working 16-hour days and eating nothing but energy bars. Mika settled into the chair across from her desk. Talk to me, Lena. Selina looked at her younger sister, brilliant, beautiful Mika, who was 3 months from graduating nursing school with a 4.0 GPA and a job offer at Presbyterian Hospital. Everything Selina had sacrificed for, everything that made the lonely nights worth it. What if I told you that you could have had your tuition paid, your loans forgiven, a guaranteed position at any hospital in Dallas? Selina asked quietly. I'd ask what the catch was. No catch. Just accepting help from someone who cares about us. Mika's expression grew serious. This is about him, isn't it? The mysterious man who's had you glowing for weeks and miserable for 2. Selina nodded, not trusting her voice. What did he offer you, Lena? Everything. A life without struggle, without choosing between necessities, without... Selina's voice cracked. Without being afraid all the time. And you said no. I said no. Why? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Why had she said no to security, to love, to a man who looked at her like she was the answer to every prayer he'd never dared pray? Because I was scared, Selina admitted. Scared that I'd become someone I didn't recognize. Scared that he'd eventually see me the way I see myself sometimes, as someone who doesn't belong in his world. Mika was quiet for a long moment, studying her sister's face. How you know what Mom used to say about pride? That it keeps you warm at night but doesn't pay the bills. That's not all she said. Mika leaned forward. She also said that sometimes pride is the only thing standing between dignity and desperation. But she never said pride was more important than love. Selina's throat tightened. What if it wasn't love? What if it was just gratitude? Fascination with someone so different from me? Was it? The memory of Leon's laugh, the way he listened when she talked about her dreams, the gentleness in his touch when he thought she was sleeping, none of that felt like gratitude. I don't know, she whispered. Then maybe you should find out. Before Selina could respond, her desk phone rang. The caller ID made her stomach clench. Meridian Restaurant. Ms. Hart? The voice belonged to Thomas, the maitre d' who'd witnessed weeks of her dinners with Leon. I hope I'm not overstepping, but Mr. Vaughn asked me to call you. Selina's hand tightened on the receiver. Is everything okay? He's been coming in every night for 2 weeks. Same table, same time. He orders dinner for 2 and sits alone until we close. Thomas's voice was carefully neutral. Tonight, he asked me to tell you that he'll be there at 7:30, just in case you change your mind. The line went dead, leaving Selina staring at the phone with her heart hammering against her ribs. What was that about? Mika asked. He's waiting for me, every night, like I might just show up. Are you going to? Selina looked out her office window at the city sprawling below. Somewhere out there, Leon was probably preparing for another evening of sitting alone at a table set for 2, hoping for a miracle that felt less likely with each passing day. I hurt him, she said softly. I accused him of trying to buy me, of seeing me as some kind of charity case. Did you believe that when you said it? I was scared. I said things. God, Mika, the look on his face when I walked away. So fix it. What if it's too late? What if I've proven I'm exactly the kind of person who can't handle his world? Mika stood, walking around the desk to wrap her arms around her sister. What if you've proven you're exactly the kind of person who's worth fighting for? At 7:15, Selina stood outside Meridian for what felt like the 100th time, her reflection wavering in the familiar glass doors. She'd changed clothes 3 times, practiced what she wanted to say during the entire drive downtown, and nearly turned around at least 6 times. Through the windows, she could see him. Leon sat at their table. She still thought of it as theirs, reading something on his tablet, a glass of wine untouched beside him. He looked thinner than she remembered, shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and regret. As she watched, the waiter approached with a plate of food. Leon shook his head, gesturing to the empty chair across from him, waiting, still waiting. The sight broke something open in Selina's chest. This man, this powerful, complicated, impossibly successful man, had been sitting alone night after night, hoping she might forgive him for loving her the only way he knew how. She pushed through the doors. Thomas spotted her immediately, his face breaking into a relieved smile. "Ms. Hart, your table is ready." The walk across the restaurant felt eternal. Other diners glanced up as she passed, but Selina only had eyes for the man who slowly raised his head as she approached. Leon's expression cycled through surprise, hope, and something that looked dangerously close to relief. He started to stand, but Selina was already sliding into her chair, her hands shaking as she reached for the wineglass that had been waiting for her. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi." His voice was rough, careful, as if he was afraid she might disappear if he spoke too loudly. "I owe you an apology. Selina, please, let me say this." She took a shaky breath. "I was scared, terrified actually. Not of you, but of wanting something so much that losing it would destroy me." Leon's hands were flat on the table, as if he was afraid to reach for her. "And now? Now I'm more terrified of a life without you in it than I am of taking the risk to be with you." Something shifted in Leon's expression, hope, fragile and desperate. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm sorry for accusing you of trying to buy me. It means I know the difference between a man trying to control me and a man trying to love me." Selina's voice broke slightly. "It means I've been miserable for 2 weeks, and I'm tired of being too proud to admit I need you." Leon's breath caught. "Selina, I don't need you to solve my problems, Leon, but I need you to be willing to face them with me." This time, when he reached across the table for her hand, she didn't pull away. "I missed you," he said simply. "I missed you too." And as their fingers intertwined on the white tablecloth, Selina realized that sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't walking away from love, it's walking toward it, even when you're terrified of what you might lose. She thought they had overcome the hardest part, until his world came for her. The champagne flute trembled in Selina's hand as she surveyed the glittering crowd at the Rosewood Mansion. 6 weeks had passed since their reconciliation at Meridian, 6 weeks of rebuilding trust and learning to love without conditions. Tonight was supposed to be their debut as a couple, Leon's first public appearance with a woman in over 2 years. "You look stunning," Leon murmured against her ear, his hand warm on the small of her back. The deep emerald dress he'd insisted on buying her felt like armor she wasn't sure she was brave enough to wear. "I feel like I'm playing dress-up in someone else's life," she admitted, watching Dallas's elite mingle around them with practiced ease. "You belong here," he said firmly, "with me." The Children's Medical Center Gala was the social event of the season. 500 of Dallas's most influential people gathered to raise money for a new pediatric wing. Leon served on the board, had written a check that made Selina's head spin, and somehow convinced her that attending together was the next natural step in their relationship. "Leon Vaughn!" a voice boomed across the crowd. Selina recognized the man approaching from business magazines. "Harrison Whitmore, oil executive and old Dallas money. About time you surfaced at one of these things." "Harrison." Leon's greeting was polite but cool. "I'd like you to meet Selina Hart." "Selina, this is Harrison Whitmore. Ms. Hart." Harrison's handshake was firm, his smile calculating. "How do you know our Leon here?" "We met by accident," Selina said carefully, hating how the half-truth tasted on her tongue. "The best meetings usually are." Harrison's eyes assessed her dress, her jewelry, clearly doing mental calculations. "And what do you do, dear?" "I'm a financial analyst at Hartwell & Associates." "Hartwell? That little consulting firm downtown?" Harrison's laugh was patronizing. "How quaint." Leon's grip on her waist tightened imperceptibly. Selina just earned her certification, top of her class. "Impressive." Harrison's tone suggested it was anything but. "Well, enjoy the evening." As he walked away, Selina felt the first crack in her armor. "He thinks I'm after your money," she said quietly. "He thinks that about every woman I've ever been seen with." Leon's voice was tight with controlled anger. "Don't let him get to you." But the damage was done. As they moved through the crowd, Selina felt the weight of curious stares, heard the whispered conversations that stopped when she approached. She was being catalogued, evaluated, found wanting by people who had never worked a day in their lives. "Selina!" A warm voice cut through her growing anxiety. "Oh my God, it's really you." Selina turned to find Jessica Reynolds, a girl she'd known in high school, now polished and perfectly coiffed in designer everything. "Jessica, hi." Selina forced a smile. "You look amazing." "So do you. I heard you were here with Leon Vaughn of all people." Jessica's laugh was bright, sharp. "When Brittany told me, I said there was no way. I mean, Selina Hart from Oak Cliff. But here you are." Heat flooded Selina's cheeks. "Here I am. How did you two meet? Please tell me it's some romantic story and not just, well, you know." "Know what?" Jessica's expression shifted, realizing she'd said too much. "Oh, nothing. Just, you know how these men are. They go through phases." The words hit like physical blows. Selina felt Leon stiffen beside her, his hand moving protectively to her arm. "If you'll excuse us," he said coldly. As they walked away, Selina felt the walls closing in. Every conversation felt like a test she was failing, every introduction a reminder that she didn't belong in this world of old money and older prejudices. "I need some air," she whispered. Leon led her to a quiet balcony overlooking the mansion's gardens. The night air was cool against her flushed skin, but it didn't ease the tightness in her chest. "I'm sorry," Leon said quietly. "I should have prepared you better for this." "Prepared me for what? For people to assume I'm a gold digger? For my own high school classmates to act like they can't believe someone like you would want someone like me?" "Selina, maybe they're right." The words tumbled out, all her insecurities laid bare. "Maybe I am just a phase. The interesting experiment before you settle down with someone who actually fits in your world." Leon's hands framed her face, forcing her to look at him. "You are not a phase. You are not an experiment. You are the woman Leon, darling." They turned to find Victoria Ashford approaching, her smile predatory and her intentions clear. Selina recognized her from the society pages, old Dallas money, beautiful in the way that money and breeding could buy, and according to the gossip magazines, Leon's most recent serious relationship before Selina. "Victoria." Leon's voice was carefully neutral. "It's been too long." Victoria's gaze swept over Selina dismissively, before focusing entirely on Leon. "I was just telling Mother how much I missed our conversations. Remember that weekend in the Hamptons? You said I was the only woman who truly understood your world." The words were perfectly calculated, designed to wound, and they hit their target with devastating accuracy. Selina felt something inside her crumble. Here was proof of everything she'd feared. A woman who actually belonged in Leon's world, who spoke his language, who fit seamlessly into the life he'd built. "I need to go," Selina said quietly. "Selina, wait." Leon reached for her, but she was already stepping back. "I'm sorry. I can't do this." She turned and walked back into the ballroom, her heels clicking against the marble floor like a countdown to disaster. Behind her, she could hear Leon calling her name, but she didn't stop. The crowd seemed to part before her, whispers following in her wake. Everyone had seen the exchange, witnessed her public humiliation. By tomorrow, it would be all over Dallas social media. Leon Vaughn's charity case, finally realizing she was out of her league. In the ladies' room, Selina stared at her reflection in the gilded mirror. The emerald dress that had felt like armor now felt like a costume. She was playing a role she'd never been meant for, pretending to be someone she could never become. Her phone buzzed with a text from Leon. "Please don't do this. Please don't run. We can work through this together." But as Selina looked at herself, really looked, she saw the truth she'd been trying to deny. Some fairy tales weren't meant for girls like her. Some worlds were too different to bridge, no matter how much love existed between them. She typed back, "I'm sorry. I can't be what you need me to be." As she walked out of the Rosewood mansion and into the Dallas night, leaving behind the man who loved her and the life she'd briefly dared to dream of, Selina realized that sometimes love wasn't enough to overcome the walls that society built between people. Some bridges were too wide to cross, no matter how desperately you wanted to reach the other side. He had never fought for anyone before, but some people are worth breaking all your rules. Leon stood on Selina's doorstep at 6 in the morning, his expensive suit wrinkled from a sleepless night, his hair disheveled from running his hands through it countless times. The small apartment building in Oak Cliff looked different in daylight, not shabby but humble, real in a way his penthouse had never been. He'd been standing there for 20 minutes, gathering courage he'd never needed in boardrooms or hostile takeovers. This was different. This mattered more than any deal he'd ever negotiated. The door opened before he could knock. "I figured you'd show up eventually," Selina said quietly. She wore an old SMU t-shirt and jeans, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, no makeup. She looked beautiful and heartbroken, and so tired that Leon felt his chest tighten with guilt. "Can I come in?" She stepped aside, letting him into the small living space that somehow felt more like home than any of the places he owned. Mismatched furniture, family photos on every surface, a coffee table stacked with Mika's nursing textbooks. It was cramped and cluttered and perfect. "You look terrible," Selina observed, settling onto the couch with her legs tucked under her. "I feel terrible." Leon remained standing, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. "You left without letting me explain." "Explain what? That Victoria Ashford is everything I'll never be? That everyone at that party saw exactly what I've always known? That I don't belong in your world? You belong with me. Do I?" Selina's laugh was hollow, because last night felt like a preview of the rest of our lives. Me being judged, whispered about, found lacking by everyone who matters to you. Those people don't matter to me. They're your world, Leon. Your business partners, your social circle, the people you've known your entire adult life. Leon was quiet for a moment, processing her words. What if I changed my world? What? What if I chose a different world, one where you and I both belong? Selina stared at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. You can't just change your entire life because of me. Watch me. Leon pulled out his phone, scrolling to a contact. Harrison, it's Leon. Yeah, I know it's early. I'm calling to resign from the Children's Medical Center board. Leon, don't... He held up a hand, continuing the call. No, this isn't a negotiation. I'm done with committees full of people who think money gives them the right to judge others. Send my final donation check. He ended the call, immediately dialing another number. What are you doing? Selina asked, panic creeping into her voice. Choosing. Leon's second call connected. Victoria? Yes, I know we need to talk. Here's what I need to say. Stay away from me and stay away from Selina. Our past is exactly that, past. If you ever disrespect the woman I love again, you'll discover that I can be far less civilized than you think. He hung up, turned to face Selina. Any other concerns you'd like me to address? You can't just burn bridges with everyone you know because of me. Those weren't bridges, Selina. They were chains. Leon sat beside her on the couch, close enough to touch but careful not to crowd her. I've spent 15 years building a life that looked successful from the outside and felt empty from the inside. I surrounded myself with people who valued what I had instead of who I was. And now I want to build something real, with someone real. He turned to face her fully. I love you, Selina. Not the version of you that fits into my old world, but the you who argues with me about accepting help, who celebrates small victories like their major triumphs, who makes me remember what it feels like to be human. Tears gathered in Selina's eyes. Those people will never accept me. Then we'll find better people. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. Leon's voice was fierce with conviction. I don't need their approval to love you. I don't need their permission to build a life with you. The only opinion that matters is yours. Leon, I know you're scared. I know last night was horrible, and I'm sorry I put you through that, but I'm asking you not to let their small-mindedness destroy what we have. Selina wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. What if it happens again? What if we go somewhere else and people treat me the same way? Then we leave. We find places where we're both valued, people who see what I see when I look at you. Which is what? Leon's smile was soft, full of love and admiration. Strength, intelligence. A woman who worked 2 jobs to put herself through school and still had energy left to support her sister. Someone who chose integrity over comfort, who refused to compromise her values even when it would have been easier. You make me sound heroic. You are heroic. You just can't see it because you've spent your whole life being told you're not enough. Leon reached for her hands, relief flooding through him when she didn't pull away. But you are enough, Selina. You're more than enough. You're everything. I'm scared, she whispered. Of what? Of believing you. Of letting myself think this could really work. Of waking up one day and finding out you've realized you could do better. Leon's heart broke a little at the raw vulnerability in her voice. Look at me. She met his eyes, her own still shimmering with unshed tears. I have never met anyone braver, smarter, more beautiful inside and out than you, he said quietly. I have never wanted anything. Not success, not money, not approval, as much as I want to spend my life loving you. There is no better than you, Selina. There's just you. The tears spilled over then, and Leon gathered her into his arms, holding her as she cried out weeks of fear and insecurity and doubt. I love you too, she whispered against his chest. I love you so much it terrifies me. Good, he said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. The best things in life should be a little terrifying. They held each other in the small living room as morning light streamed through the windows, two people who had found something worth fighting for in a world that seemed determined to keep them apart. So what happens now? Selina asked eventually. Now we build our own world, Leon said simply. One where love matters more than money, where character counts more than connections, a world where we both belong. That sounds impossible. The best things usually do. And as Leon kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise, Selina realized that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is believe that you deserve the love someone is offering you, even when the world tells you otherwise. 6 months later, she would realize this was the moment her real life began. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Selina's apartment, their apartment now, as Leon had quietly moved in 3 months ago, bringing nothing but clothes and a willingness to sleep on a couch that was too small for his frame. The cramped space had somehow expanded to hold their shared dreams, their whispered conversations, their growing certainty that love could, in fact, conquer the obstacles the world placed in its path. Selina stood at the kitchen counter, preparing coffee in the French press Leon had insisted on buying, his one concession to luxury in their deliberately simple life. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mika. Stop being nervous. Today is going to be perfect. Today. The day that would either validate every risk they'd taken or prove that fairy tales were called fiction for a reason. Leon emerged from the shower, his hair still damp, wearing the navy suit she'd helped him pick out. Expensive but not ostentatious, successful but not intimidating. He looked nervous in a way she'd never seen before, and it made her love him even more. Ready? He asked, straightening his tie. Are you? Terrified, he admitted, with a smile that made her stomach flutter. But the good kind of terrified. They were due at Meridian in 20 minutes, not for dinner this time, but for the press conference that would either launch their new venture or end Leon's reputation as a serious businessman. 6 months of planning, of secret meetings with architects and contractors, of late-night strategy sessions at this very kitchen table, all leading to this moment. The restaurant looked different in daylight, less mysterious, but somehow more welcoming. Thomas, the maitre d' who had witnessed their entire love story, greeted them with a genuine smile. They're waiting in the private dining room, he said. All of Dallas media, plus some national outlets, Business Journal, Forbes, even a crew from CNN. Leon's hand found Selina's, squeezing gently. Last chance to run, he whispered. Together or not at all, she whispered back. The private dining room buzzed with conversation as they entered. Reporters, photographers, cameras, the entire apparatus of public scrutiny that had once terrified Selina. But today, walking beside Leon with her hand in his, she felt only anticipation. They took their positions at the front of the room, Leon behind a podium, Selina beside him in the chair they'd carefully positioned to show they were equals in this venture. Thank you all for coming, Leon began, his voice carrying the authority that had built his empire. 6 months ago I made a decision that changed my life. I chose love over convenience, authenticity over approval, partnership over power. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This wasn't the language of typical business announcements. Today, I'm announcing the launch of Hart Vaughan Community Development, Leon continued, gesturing to Selina, a company dedicated to building affordable housing, community centers, and educational facilities in underserved neighborhoods throughout Texas. The room erupted in questions, cameras flashing, reporters scribbling notes. This was news. Leon Vaughan, known for luxury high-rises and corporate headquarters, pivoting to affordable housing with a woman most of them had never heard of. Ms. Hart, called a reporter from the Dallas Business Journal, what qualifications do you have to partner with someone of Mr. Vaughan's stature in such a significant venture? The question that would have destroyed her confidence 6 months ago now felt like an opportunity to tell her truth. I have the qualification of having lived in the communities we're going to serve, Selina said, her voice clear and strong. I know what it's like to choose between rent and groceries, to dream of home ownership while working 3 jobs, to see potential in neighborhoods that others have written off. My qualifications aren't on paper. They're in my life experience. And you, Mr. Vaughan, called another reporter. This represents a significant departure from your previous work. What's driving this change? Leon looked at Selina, his eyes soft with the kind of love that couldn't be manufactured or purchased. I met someone who showed me the difference between building monuments to success and building foundations for community, he said. Everything I've done before was about proving I could rise above where I came from. This is about reaching back to lift others up. Is this relationship business or personal? Pressed a reporter from CNN. Leon and Selena exchanged a look that contained entire conversations. Both, Leon said simply. Selena is my partner in every sense of the word. In business, in life, in the belief that success should be measured not by what you accumulate, but by what you contribute. Ms. Hart, how do you respond to critics who might say you're using your relationship with Mr. Vaughn to advance your career? Selena had rehearsed for this question, but in the moment, she abandoned her prepared response and spoke from her heart. 6 months ago, I would have been devastated by that question because I would have believed it might be true, she said. But love, real love, doesn't diminish you. It doesn't make you less than you were. It challenges you to become more than you thought possible. Leon didn't give me this opportunity because he loves me. He loves me because I earned this opportunity. The room was quiet now, the cynical energy of the press conference shifting into something more thoughtful. What's the timeline for your first project? Asked a reporter. We break ground next month in Oak Cliff, Leon announced. 50 units of affordable housing, a community center with educational programs, and a small business incubation hub, all designed with input from current residents who know what their neighborhood needs. Oak Cliff? The reporter looked surprised. That's quite a departure from your usual uptown developments. Oak Cliff is where I learned what home really means, Selena said, her voice warm with affection for her neighborhood. It's where I learned that community isn't about property values. It's about people who look out for each other, who celebrate each other's victories and support each other through struggles. We're not developing Oak Cliff. We're investing in it. As the press conference wound down, reporters lingering to ask follow-up questions, Selena felt a profound sense of completion. This wasn't just a business announcement. It was a declaration that they had chosen each other, chosen to build something meaningful together, chosen to prove that love could be both personal and powerful. Later, as they walked through the Oak Cliff neighborhood where they would break ground, Leon stopped suddenly. Do you remember what you said to me that first night? He asked. When you were trying to leave? That I didn't belong there. And what do you think now? Selena looked around at the familiar streets, at the murals painted by local artists, at the small businesses that served the community with pride despite limited resources. Then she looked at Leon, this man who had chosen to see value where others saw only problems, who had chosen to love her not despite where she came from, but because of who it had made her. I think I belonged exactly where I was supposed to be, she said softly. At your table in your life, in this moment that led us here. Leon's kiss was soft, certain, full of the kind of promise that couldn't be broken by doubt or diminished by outside opinion. To building something that lasts, he whispered against her lips. To building something that matters, she whispered back. And as they stood together in the neighborhood, where Selena had learned to dream big and fight hard, both of them understood that the most beautiful love stories aren't about finding someone who fits into your existing world. They're about finding someone worth creating a new world with, one foundation at a time. 2 years later, the morning light filtered through the windows of the small house on Elmwood Street, casting golden shadows across the hardwood floors that Leon had installed himself, insisting that some things were too important to delegate. Selena stood in the kitchen, their kitchen now in the neighborhood where she'd grown up, watching her husband of 6 months make coffee with the same French press they'd used in her old apartment. Husband. The word still made her heart skip, even though the simple gold band on her finger had become as natural as breathing. The Johnson family moves into Unit 47 today, Leon said, handing her a cup and kissing her temple with the casual intimacy of 2 years together. That makes our Oak Cliff development 100% occupied, with a waiting list 200 families long, Selena added, settling against the counter beside him. I never imagined we'd have this problem. The problem of success? The problem of not being able to help everyone fast enough. Leon's smile was soft, full of the pride he'd learned to show freely. That's why we're breaking ground in East Dallas next month, and South Oak Cliff in the spring. Through their kitchen window, Selena could see the Hart Vaughn Community Center across the street, already bustling with morning activities. Children heading to the before-school program, adults arriving for job training classes, elderly residents gathering for their daily coffee and gossip session. The building that had once been an abandoned warehouse now hummed with life and possibility. Mrs. Rodriguez got her GED yesterday, Selena said, watching the older woman unlock the center's doors. 63 years old and she's already talking about taking college courses. And Marcus from Unit 12 starts his electrician apprenticeship on Monday, Leon added, says he wants to work on our next development. These were the moments that mattered, not the business awards lining their office walls or the Forbes article that had called them Dallas's most innovative development team. It was Mrs. Rodriguez's tears of joy, Marcus's determined smile, the sound of children playing safely in courtyards designed with their laughter in mind. Selena's phone buzzed with a text from Mika, now head nurse at Presbyterian's pediatric wing. Lunch today? I have news, and it's the good kind. Your sister? Leon asked, reading over her shoulder with the comfortable intrusion of long partnership. She says she has good news. Think she's finally going to admit she's in love with that resident from cardiology. Dr. Williams is pretty obvious about his feelings. Selena smiled, remembering Mika's flustered denials whenever the handsome doctor's name came up. Maybe she's ready to stop being stubborn about accepting help in the romance department. Stubbornness about accepting help, Leon mused with theatrical seriousness. Can't imagine where she learned that trait. Selena elbowed him playfully, but she was laughing. The woman who had once been terrified of depending on anyone had learned that the right kind of love didn't make you smaller. It made you brave enough to become who you were always meant to be. Speaking of help, Leon said, his tone shifting to something more serious. The mayor's office called yesterday. They want us to consult on the East Quarter revitalization project. The whole East Quarter. Selena set down her coffee cup, mind already racing with possibilities. That's massive. 80 blocks. They want affordable housing, community spaces, small business incubation, educational facilities. Everything we've been proving works on a smaller scale. That's a multi-year commitment, millions of dollars. Are we ready for something that big? Leon turned to face her fully, his expression serious but unafraid. Are you asking if our business is ready, or if we're ready? It was the question that mattered. Over 2 years, they'd learned to navigate not just the complexities of development and construction, but the delicate balance of being partners in every sense. They'd had their fights, heated discussions about budgets and timelines that sometimes spilled over into their personal life. But they'd also learned that disagreeing about methods didn't mean disagreeing about mission. I think, Selena said slowly, that 2 years ago, I would have been terrified of taking on something that big. I would have worried about failing, about proving all the doubters right. And now I'm thinking about the 8,000 families who could have safe, affordable homes, the children who could grow up in communities designed to nurture them, the small businesses that could thrive with the right support. She met his eyes, seeing her own determination reflected there. I'm thinking we didn't come this far to only come this far. Leon's smile was brilliant, transformative. So we say yes? We say yes, but, she held up a finger, we do it our way. Community input from day one, hiring locally, building for the people who live there, not the people who might move there. Agreed. Leon pulled her into his arms, holding her close in the kitchen where they'd planned their first development over takeout containers and shared hope. You know what this means? That we're going to be working 18-hour days for the next 3 years? That we're going to change thousands of lives. Together. The word settled between them like a promise renewed. Together. Through the skeptics who said their model wouldn't scale. Through the late nights and early mornings, the budget crises and permit delays, the moments of doubt and the celebrations of victory. Together, building something that would outlast them both. I love you, Leon Vaughn, Selena said softly. The words as true as they'd been that first night she'd dared to speak them. I love you too, Selena Hart Vaughn. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, finally her lips, with the tenderness of a man who had learned that the most valuable things in life couldn't be bought or built, only chosen every day in 1,000 small moments of commitment. As they prepared to leave for the office, located in the heart of Oak Cliff, in a restored building they'd saved from demolition, Selena paused at their front door. 2 years ago, she'd been a woman afraid to take up space, afraid to want more than survival. Now she was preparing to transform an entire section of Dallas, to create homes and dreams and possibilities for thousands of families. The journey from that confused woman sitting at the wrong table to this confident partner in love and business felt impossible in retrospect. But that was the thing about real transformation. It happened so gradually, through so many small acts of courage, that you didn't realize how far you'd traveled until you looked back. Ready? Leon asked, offering her his arm with the old-fashioned courtesy that had charmed her from the beginning. Always, she said, taking his arm and stepping into the morning light. Because this was what love looked like when it grew up. Not the desperate need to complete each other, but the quiet confidence of two whole people choosing to build something beautiful together. Not the fairy tale ending, but the beginning of a story that would be written in cornerstone ceremonies and ribbon cuttings, in family dinners and shared dreams, in the daily choice to keep choosing each other. And somewhere in Dallas, in a restaurant called Meridian, there was still a table set for two. The table where a mistake had become destiny, where a woman had sat down in the wrong place and found exactly where she belonged. The table where love had learned it was brave enough to change the world, one foundation at a time. This is the story of a woman who thought she was in the wrong place, and a man who finally found the right person to build a life with. Sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about finding your missing piece. They're about finding someone who inspires you to become the best version of yourself. What would you risk for a love that doesn't just change your life, but challenges you to change the world around you? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.